You're tuning in to the Raised by Rentals program. This podcast will contain strong language and spoilers for decades-old media properties.
Join us.
Welcome, everybody. This is the podcast where we examine pop culture franchises of the VHS era and improv news stories, but not nude stories. So don't get too excited because we're wearing pants this time, but not all the time because sometimes we like to go full Winnie the Pooh while we imagine how we might improve our favorite movies, TV, and games. I'm Josh.
I'm Mike.
And we're Raised by Rentals. Mike, this is our 100th episode. Woohoo!
And for the record, I am going full Winnie the Pooh.
Excellent. Oh man, so we are here for the 100th time.
That's fucking nuts.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. 100 episodes of Raised by Rentals. We started back in December 2021. It is now July of 2025, so not quite 4 years, but well into our 4th season. I can't believe we've come this far. And today, without too much further ado, we're going to dive right into another improv, one that harkens all the way back to our original vision for the show. When we figured out we were doing an improv show. It took that first episode to kind of like figure out what we were doing. You're like, oh,
right?
It's just fanfic. Oh shit.
Oh, we're the fanfic podcast.
God
damn it.
Damn it. But yeah, this is our 76th improv story episode, and it's actually going to tie thematically back to our very first episode ever because we are once again, big surprise, going to have an episode where we talk about slasher flicks.
Yay! My favorite.
But also, more specifically, just like, we've done a lot of what if sequels to really fun movies that either didn't get any sequels or had, bad sequels, or we loved them so much we just wanted them to have even more sequels. So we decided that for our 100th episode, we needed to go back to our roots. For our 25th episode, we did Summer School 2, The David Chainsaw Massacre, the perfect mashup of summer comedy with a little bit of horror mixed in. Love that one. For our 50th episode, we did the second installment in our Slasher Camp series with Ernest Goes to Slasher Camp. Again, comedy, slashers, loved it. The 75th episode, we did Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter Got Whacked. Not a slasher flick, but a fun summer comedy. This time, we are once again doing a fun summer comedy with a little bit of a dark twist with Monster Squad 2 Slasher Summer.
This is one of those things. Monster Squad 2, it's a movie that should have happened. Monster Squad 100% should have had a sequel. And I know there was a planned sequel that didn't make it. And I know that there was a remake that was planned that got shit canned. But really, everybody that loved movies like The Goonies back in the 80s knows about Monster Squad. It was just one of those movies every 80s kid talked about. Why did we never get a proper sequel to Monster Squad?
Yeah.
It seems criminal.
Yeah, well, you mentioned The Goonies, and that's a perfect example of how people have talked about doing a follow-up to The Goonies forever. Like right now, there's actively, people in Hollywood saying it's happening, we're filming it, it's coming, but for decades, there's been no follow-up. And that's like a Spielberg movie, so it's like,
right?
Or, at least Spielberg adjacent. So how do we not have a Goonies sequel? Yeah, how do we not have a Monster Squad sequel? And I think the reality is the fact that the original Monster Squad completely bombed in the theater. It was a total failure upon its initial release in cinemas, which is kind of crazy when you think about the fact that it was written, or at least co-written, by Shane Black, who, maybe at the time he wasn't as big of a star, but he already had Lethal Weapon out. I guess was Predator the same year, 1987? That's when Monster Squad came out. Wasn't Predator also 87? I can't remember.
I believe so. I'm almost positive because I feel like Predator, RoboCop, and The Lost Boys were all 87. Because I remember seeing those movies in the theater. Yep, 1987. Looking
Yeah.
at it right now.
See, I knew it. I should have stuck to my guns. I was doubting myself because I'm like, yeah, 1987 is like one of the greatest years in movie history, especially if you're
Hmm.
into like genre flicks. There was something about Hollywood that year, man. They were just firing on all cylinders, and I don't think Monster Squad gets as much love as it should. But
For that reason, yeah.
yeah. The problem is it didn't get its love until it came out on VHS, which, of course, at that time,
Mhm.
even in the late 80s, that was going to be at least 6 months or more, and you'd have to get it in the
Oh
rental
yeah.
store. And you and I probably had the same experience that a lot of kids our age had, which is going to, movie time or Blockbuster or whatever with your
Hmm.
parents and just, perusing the box art, looking for something cool and seeing that cool painting from the poster on the cover of the VHS and like, mom,
Hmm.
dad, look at this. It's like, little kids versus Dracula and getting all excited. And because it was a PG-13, they were like, yeah, cool. It's little kids and Dracula. How bad can it be? And then a whole generation fell in love with Monster Squad like 6 months after it flopped in the theaters.
This is actually one I did go see in the theater. I vividly remember this was when Summit Six, was our main theater that we went to, and it was one of those summer movies. Like my dad loved going to the movies in the summertime because like he worked a ton of overtime, but in the summer he would always take like a couple weekends off. And it was just like, all right, we're gonna go to movies, we're gonna have a cookout, that type of thing. And that summer, man, we went to so many movies. But I remember going to see Monster Squad because my dad wanted to see it, and like me, my brother, and my sister all freaking loved it. So as soon as it came out for rental, we rented it and copied it. So we had the
Hmm.
home copy, and man, we watched it all the time as kids. But the other thing you mentioned Shane Black, also Fred Decker. Now I know
Yeah,
he's not one of the big names, but it's like directed Night of the Creeps, RoboCop 3 for us RoboCop fans. Um, but he also wrote House 2, the second story,
love that
which
movie.
is, and apparently, and he wrote the first one as well. But, I know House isn't as loved by everybody, but for House 2, come on. How can you not love House 2? It's so good.
Yeah, absolutely. Like when I was a kid, I had only seen House 2, and it was still, it scared the shit out of me, while at the same time being really silly. And I think that's
Hmm.
that's exactly the formula that they also captured with, Monster Squad, which is it's not as creepy, but there's some pretty scary moments, especially
Oh,
if
yeah.
you're a kid, like I was, probably 8 years old when I saw this. The kids in the movie are all like middle school age. There's definitely some sequences in Monster Squad that would have given you like the heebie-jeebies for sure.
Oh, yeah. I was honestly kind of creeped out by the creature as a kid just because he looked so fierce. And then the scene where the Wolfman put himself back together, I remember me and my brother used to talk about that all the time. Like, what would you do? Like, you don't have access to a silver bullet. How would you defeat him? So like we would always talk about that, like how creepy it is. Like, you could blow him up and he goes back together. That's so scary. But I mean, Fred Decker was kind of known for that type of stuff. Like, look at Night of the Creeps. Night of the Creeps has plenty of moments that are just like, oh, that is spooky, but it's so tongue in cheek and silly. Like the axe murderer with the slugs, that's pretty creepy. Some of the zombies are pretty creepy, but overall, it's a silly movie. And it's got plenty of jokes and laughs throughout, very much like Monster Squad and films of that ilk that he like House,
Hmm.
Second Story. Um, God, I haven't watched the first House in forever, but I've watched House 2 as recently as last month.
Oh, yeah, I haven't seen anyone in a while. I watched like a super cut of all like the highlights from House 2. Yeah, maybe
Mhm.
3 months ago, and I was like, yep, still creepy. You know?
Yeah, it's that damn cowboy. That
Yeah.
cowboy is spooky. It's got the same old man from Killer Clowns from Outer Space and from Ghoulies 2, Royal Dano, the guy from Gunsmoke.
Oh shit. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's right. The Gunsmoke guy. My dad used to watch that
he
all the time.
he always plays like the old drunk.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh man. But yeah, Monster Squad is such a great movie. It really is. And it's the perfect horror movie for kids.
Hmm.
And because it's about kids, starring kids, but the kids are just old enough to be there's a little bit of like adult stuff, like talk of virgins and things like that. And
Hmm.
Rudy is a little bit of a pervy older kid, but
Right.
then like these classic horror movie monsters are in it to the point where like when I was a kid I didn't know like who all the monsters were necessarily. I actually did discover Gilman through Monster Squad, and now
Oh, okay.
the Creature from the Black Lagoon movies are my favorite of the old like black and white like monster films.
Yeah.
I love those ones the best. I think the original Frankenstein's probably the best one, but I'm a
Yep.
huge creature fan. I always have been. One of my prized possessions is I have a collection of Art Adams comics. Art Adams being this incredible illustrator. He's probably mostly known for doing a lot of X-Men in the 90s. Um, but he has this incredibly detailed style, so he's so slow. But he's also like a big monster guy, so he did comics about Godzilla with Alan Moore, and he has this Creature from Black Lagoon comic, and I have it signed by him that I literally just bought off the shelf at a comic shop at Haley's Comics in Western New York, and now it's
Hmm.
like a sought after collectible. But anyway, but yeah, Monster Squad introduced me to the Gilman, and I think it's the perfect horror movie for kids. It's more about monsters. It's not super bloody. It's not
Hmm.
super scary. They really make the kids like look cool. Like they really
Yeah.
shine. They're not like silly kids who have to rely on an adult to help them. Like no, they kick ass and they save the day. But at the same time, it's not, like I said, it's not too dark. It's not too scary. Is no one's gonna have nightmares from Monster Squad, but the fucking mummy in the closet is still creepy as shit, you know?
Oh, hell yeah. And the scene at the like when they unravel the mummy, like the scene where he's hanging onto the back of the Jeep, like it's still a creepy, tense moment, even though it has a funny outcome. But like when he first grabs onto that Jeep and like the kids are right there, it's pretty spooky because that mummy is ugly as fuck.
Yeah,
Like he's
absolutely.
he's got that crusty, like decayed face. Like it's just nasty looking.
Oh, I
But
love it.
real quick, I have to mention this just because you had mentioned one of your prized possessions being a creature piece. Um, I have a very now see I knew who the creature was prior to that simply because of the Remco Universal Monsters toy line in the 80s. They were the little 3 3/4 inch like pocket monsters basically, and
Hmm.
I had the glow in the dark Gillman. My brother had the Wolfman and Dracula, and my sister had the Phantom of the Opera. Now I never had Frankenstein or the Mummy, but I had that glow in the dark creature. I played with that thing until it fell apart. And now 2 Christmases ago, Mike O'May from Count Creepyhead got it for me.
Nice.
And I still have like I it's in my living room right now. It's one of my prized possessions, but it's this classic 1980s glow in the dark creature figure.
Oh, I love it.
And man, I've always loved the Creature from the Black Lagoon. I agree that as far as the Universal monster movies go, like I feel like the first Creature from the Black Lagoon is the most fun. I
Hmm.
love watching that movie, but the one I watch the most is Frankenstein because I watch it yearly on Halloween. Um, but yeah, I love the creature mainly because of that meme where he's smashing things. He goes, "Fuck this, fuck that, fuck this." So every time he's throwing something in the movie, I'm giggling to myself because I'm picturing that meme.
Nice. Yes, that's awesome. Yeah. Honestly, like Gilman's stuff is it's one of those things where it's like I see people like collectors. I actually follow some of them on like TikTok and stuff. People who like collect creatures from the Black Lagoon memorabilia, and it's one of those things
Mhm.
where it's like I don't need another collection to just like suck my money dry. I don't need like another money
Yep.
pit of a hobby because comics are bad enough. But like man, if I had one. I would love to have that stuff. I just live vicariously through like the people I follow on like social media who collect creature stuff because I love it. And like Dracula's great, Frankenstein's great, but
Hmm.
there's just something about Gilman that just, it scratches the right itch for me. The
Yep.
design, it just fires on all cylinders for me. Is like the coolest fucking character. I love, water characters. But anyway, whatever. Yeah. Art Adams Creature Features. That's that book that I have that's signed.
Hmm.
But anyway, so back to
I
Monster
actually
Squad.
remember borrowing that from you.
Yeah. It's fucking great. Yeah. Um,
That's got the Godzilla story in it, right?
yeah, got again written by Alan Moore. It's called Trampling
Yep.
Tokyo. I just looked it up now, and there's a Monkey Man and O'Brien story in there, and then like I said,
Yes.
and then there's the and and it's an officially licensed Creature from the Black Lagoon comic too, by the way. Yeah.
Funnily enough, I borrowed that from you when I was going on my honeymoon. because I remember reading it in Maine on the porch of the cabin that Jess and I rented
Nice.
while she was passed out. Like she'd gone to bed for the night, and I'm sitting up smoking, reading. I was reading comic books and I Am Legend. Those were the two things that I
Nice.
was reading while I was there.
Nice. Yeah.
But good times.
These days, I would never lend it to you. Not that it's worth like thousands. It's worth maybe like $100, but like still, like
Oh yeah.
it's also like
Well, now
it's not super. It's also not super easy to find. So
that was back in 2005, so yeah, that was a
yeah,
while ago.
yeah. Back then, I didn't know any better. It's just like now, I want to say it's $200-300. My Eltingville
Oh
hardcover
yeah.
collection, the Eltingville Club by Evan Dorkin. First, I just
Hmm.
bought it brand new when it came out a couple years ago because I have the collections of his Dork comics, and they didn't include the Eltingville comics because they were planning on doing like a big release after he finished some of the stories that he had never done, which he eventually did in like the 2010s. So they put out the Dork collection. They re-released it in like a big hardcover, and then they did the same thing in a matching hardcover for Milk and Cheese. And of course, when Eltingville Club came out, because that's my favorite thing by Evan Dorkin. I don't
Hmm.
honestly don't normally buy stuff brand new unless I get it at my local store when I'm trying to like support a mom and pop business. But I just bought it straight from Amazon pre-order because I couldn't wait to get it. And now it's been out of print for so long that again, I see people on that Facebook group all the time like dropping $300 on a copy to the point where Evan Dorkin
Damn.
has gone on Instagram recently to tell people to stop doing that because there's another printing coming finally. And I'm like, again, man, maybe I should have sold mine while I could and then bought the printing. I don't know.
When it does come out, I'll have to buy that because I do not have that,
Yeah.
and I love the Eltingville. Like that's one of my favorites by him.
Yeah, absolutely. And should get it too. Like I said, he did some some later stories all the way up to like the end of the club. But anyway, we were talking about Monster Squad. We went on one of those rabbit trails. Remember the rabbit trails was the thing?
Yeah, well, we had to call back because it's the 100th episode.
Exactly, exactly. We just hang a lampshade on it so people don't just yada 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 us at their listening to us in the car driving around like skipping the little was it the forward 15-second button on like the iPhone podcast app,
Yeah,
you know? So
exactly.
so Monster Squad, 1987. We talked about it being directed by Fred Decker and co-written by Shane Black. There's not really a lot of big stars in it. A couple of people that you'd probably recognize. I think Mary Ellen Trainor is probably the biggest star at the time because she was in a
Hmm.
bunch of stuff like the Lethal Weapon films. She was in the Goonies, which we already mentioned, like Romancing the Stone. She's in Forrest Gump. Like she's in a bunch of stuff because I want to say she was married to Richard Donner. I think that was the reason why she was in a lot of those. She's in my absolute favorite episode of Tales from the Crypt, one of the original three.
Oh,
The
so good.
All Through the House Christmas special. I think John Grease is probably the biggest star now, right?
Hmm.
Because he plays the Wolfman back then. I don't think people really knew who he was too much, but now he's Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite, right?
Hmm. He was
uh,
also the werewolf in Fright Night 2,
yeah, yeah,
which I believe came out right around the same time.
yeah.
Let
I
me
think
see.
so.
Fright Night 2. Friday Night 2, 88. So he played a
Yeah,
Wolfman in 87 and then a Wolfman in 88.
there you go. And he doesn't have a super large role in it, but he's got a really cool role in Get Shorty, which I fucking
Hmm.
love that with movie with Gene Hackman and John Travolta and Rene Russo. But anyway, yeah, so he's probably the biggest star now, but even he's not like an A-lister, right? Uh, the,
Right.
None of the kids really went on to do anything. The only kid that I recognized at the time and to this day, the only kid that was more than just a random kid to me was the character Rudy, who's also my favorite character in the movie. He's like the cool, tough older kid who was played by Ryan Lambert, who I knew because I was a fan of Kids Incorporated back then in the 80s,
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
which was
And
also the jumping off point for like Jennifer Love Hewitt.
quick side note, am I remembering this wrong? But didn't whatchamacallit, John Grease also wasn't he also the crazy recluse in Real Genius? I haven't
Yeah,
watched it since
yeah.
we did our episode. Okay.
Laszlo, yeah.
Yeah, he was Laszlo. Okay. I'm sitting here going, why can I picture him being like this crazy genius character? What was that movie? And then I thought about Real Genius.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so he was Laszlo. That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, he was like the. I mean, I guess maybe still to this day a little bit, but Napoleon Dynamite really kind of like increased his reputation a bit to people kind of know who he is, like his profile is the word I'm trying to
Mhm.
think of. But he was like the Clint Howard. He was just always playing
Yeah.
some random character, some random kind of sleazy tough guy kind of a character.
Hmm.
Yeah, he's in a bunch of stuff back then. But anyway, so like I said, uh, other than Rudy, who is the sort of like tough older kid, the main kids in the squad are Sean. He's the main character, Sean Crenshaw, whose dad is, I want to say he's the police chief or a detective or something, but he's like, a cop with some clout and power on the police force, who's married to Mary Ellen Trainor. So Sean is the main character. His little sister is Phoebe. The other two main guys in the club are Patrick and Horace, who they call Fat Kid most of the time, until
Gotta love those '80s nicknames.
yeah, until he reminds us that the name is Horace.
Such a great scene.
Yeah. And then there's Eugene, who's another like littler kid, right? So I guess that's six
Mhm.
total. But yeah, it's basically Sean, Patrick, and Horace. With they recruit Rudy almost right away, and then Eugene and seems more of a tag along than anything. And Phoebe's not in the club. She wants to be in the club, but she has to become friends with Frankenstein to get that street cred.
Right. Because she's only 5. She doesn't know nothing about monsters. Come on.
Come on. So they live in, some little town in like middle America, looks like Ohio or Indiana or some shit. And somehow Sean's mom gets her hands on Abraham Van Helsing's diary at a garage sale.
At the creepy old mansion on the hill.
Yeah,
Because the creepy old mansion decided to have a garage sale.
yeah, exactly. And this is like, the Van Helsing from Bram Stoker's Dracula, like the guy who famously, destroyed Dracula at the end of the book. And he's in most of the movies. Hugh Jackman got to play him in that one action flick, that guy.
Oh God, I hated that movie so much. Oh May, I know you're listening. Fight me.
I hate it too. um, so yeah, so somehow she gets, this really special, like famous diary from a garage sale. Casually gives it to her kid because she's like, "Oh, you like monsters, right? Here you go." And it doesn't take him long to figure out what it is. He realizes how important it is. But like, as a 12-year-old kid, she could have bought that shit at like the Halloween section in Target and given it to him and told him it was Van Helsing's diary. He would be like, "Really? This is his diary?" Like, like,
Exactly. You would have totally bought it.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like, and I always wondered, even as a kid, where I was like, "Is that really the diary?" I honestly always thought it was planted somehow. Even as a kid, I remember thinking that like it's really sort of like convenient to the plot that the leader of the monster squad just casually gets handed, the diary of the most famous monster hunter in history or literary history, I guess. And
Yeah.
I was always expecting there to be some kind of a plot point where like it was purposely left for him or his family or something like, oh, your mom or your dad or your grandpa or somebody was like a monster hunter back in the day, and I knew if I got it to the right family, like it would fall in the right hands and like you fulfilled the destiny or some shit. But no, she just bought it at a garage sale.
It's such a throwaway line. Like, I got it at a garage sale.
It's
Oh, really? Okay, cool.
so
Oh man.
long story short, it's written in German. The kids know that there's this, guy in town that they refer to as the scary German guy who, you know, there's always that one house in like every neighborhood that like the kids think
Hmm.
is either haunted or like the guy who lives there, like, did you hear he killed a guy back in the 70s? It's,
Yep.
you know,
Every neighborhood, every single one.
like the what they call him, like the sidewalk slayer or whatever from Home Alone, like the neighbor with the salt
Right.
can. um,
It's It's so funny that that's like a universal experience as children of the 80s and 90s.
It totally
I
is. Yeah.
wonder if kids still experience that nowadays.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we definitely had that like in not directly in my neighborhood, but like not that far away. Um, but yeah, so they end up like, getting up enough gumption to go talk to the scary German guy who turns out is, the absolutely opposite of scary German guy who,
Hmm.
reads the diary. He totally buys it too. He believes that it's real. He basically explains that there's this amulet that's like concentrated good, and it helps to keep, I don't know, the universe in balance between good and evil, or I don't know, something, some kind of weird bullshit where um
It's the MacGuffin amulet.
yeah, that's all it is. Every 100 years they supposedly have to protect it or something because it's like indestructible except on like midnight every 100 years, which of course scared German
Yeah,
guy
like
is like,
the,
isn't that like tonight?
it's 100 years tonight. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's that whole thing where it's like, the veil between good and evil is weakest, and all that. The same type of stuff you see in all of these type of horror movies where they're waiting for a particular time. It's always during that time the veil is weak and the monsters can come out. It's like, the reason monsters come out on Halloween, the veil between living and the dead is the weakest. Whoa. And it's just a MacGuffin.
Yeah, exactly. The whole plot of this movie is just don't ask too many questions, you know? Um,
Exactly.
and and they figure out or surmise or something. They're like, oh yeah, the amulet's in like the big scary house where the diary came from. So it turns out that yes, that is actually true somehow because it's like this 100th year anniversary. The actual Count Dracula is like revived and he recruits Gilman and the Mummy and eventually Frankenstein to come to this, middle America suburban town. They encamp themselves in this big scary house where they find the amulet walled up in a like room in the basement. Dracula just casually like kidnaps and turns into vampires like three girls from like the high school, which I always thought was also super creepy, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Oh, and the Wolfman. You forgot about the Wolfman
oh
too.
yeah, can't forget about the Wolfman. And the Wolfman who like doesn't seem to want to help him, right? Or
Yeah.
at least not in his human guise. And he knows he's the Wolfman, but whenever he's a human, he's constantly trying to like get locked up so he doesn't turn into the Wolfman and like kill people, which is kind of cool.
Yep.
Frankenstein ends he was also reluctant to help. Again, I'm trying to like, paint this with big brushes here, but Phoebe somehow befriends Frankenstein because their house is like goes right up against a swamp, and Frankenstein's just like he's a big dumb idiot, played by Tom Noonan, uh,
Hmm. Who I
and
also just watched in RoboCop 2.
yeah, exactly. He's awesome. Yeah, and so she basically gets to be a part of the club, and of course, we didn't really explain that their whole thing with the Monster Squad is that they're a club of kids who are all fans of classic Universal movie monsters. They watch a bunch of like old, you know, literally old like scary movies, and it's basically just like if you know enough about monsters, you could be cool enough to be one of us, man. That's like
Got to have the monster quiz.
exactly. um, yeah, and then they find out about Dracula and the monsters. The monsters are terrorizing the town and like killing people and scaring people. Dracula wants to destroy the amulet so the evil can take over the world and upset the balance of good and evil, and he'll take over everything. They need a virgin to like read this spell or something out of the book, and the only virgin they can find is Phoebe because she's 5, right?
And I love how literally any of the boys could have read it too, because nowhere does
Yeah.
it specify a virgin female. But
Yeah. Well, it also makes me continue to wonder and marvel at like how different things were in like the 80s and 90s, and I guess earlier, in terms of like the age appropriateness of like sexual stuff. Like
Hmm.
just this morning, I had put Heather's on in the background while I was like making breakfast, just something to listen to. And
Hmm.
it was the scene where Heather Chandler, the red Heather, takes,
Hmm.
Veronica, Winona Ryder's character, to the
Oh, to the party.
yeah, the Remington College party, and like
Hmm.
they don't show anything, but it's very, heavily hinted that, Heather is like going down on this dude. And these college guys are literally just like, save your speech. I just want to get laid. Hot high school girls. And it's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like this was a huge popular movie, but of course it was all normal at that time, right?
Yeah.
Even in Clueless, right? Fucking Cher, Alicia Silverstone, is a junior in high school who turns 16 during the movie and falls in love
Hmm.
with a college guy, and that's the big love story. Yay, she wins. She gets
Hmm.
she gets the college boyfriend. Like this is a child, you know?
Right. Exactly. And it's very creepy when you start to break the shit down.
Yeah, so what's even creepier is that none of these kids could find a girl who was a virgin. Let me remind you, they are 12 years old, these kids. They are in fucking middle school and they can't find a virgin girl to read this book. I mean,
Oh, it's ludicrous. It really is.
yeah, so anyway, we won't dwell on that. What we want to dwell on instead is what we would do with a Monster Squad sequel. Now, I mentioned the subtitle already, Slasher Summer, which it just sounds
Hmm.
cool. I was going to use it somewhere eventually.
Right.
um, but what we thought was, well, these kids, again, they were in middle school. They were really into these like old Universal monster flicks, probably because those were horror movies that were safe for kids to watch that their parents would have seen. They're classics. They would have read
Hmm.
books about monsters, vampires and werewolves and shit like that. Well, you got to fast forward a couple of years, 2 or 3 years. Let's say it's 1989. Let's say the kids are now 14, 15 years old. We can maybe go a little bit older, but now the reason I wanted to keep it 1989 is I feel like being in the 80s is just very
Yeah.
appropriate to the vibe. Um,
Totally.
because of course horror movies were big in the 80s. Slasher movies were huge in the 80s, right?
Hmm.
Obviously, you had Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween. Yes, technically started in the 70s, but huge in the 80s. Child's Play, like,
All of its sequels were the 80s.
yeah, Hellraiser. I mean, we could go on and on and on and on. Like, there's so many slasher movies in the 80s. It was a cultural phenomenon. And of course, the kids who were, in middle school, as they get to be like, I don't know, freshmen in high school, of course they're going to graduate to the slashers. That's what they
Oh
are going to
yeah.
be into. Like, they want stuff that's cooler, edgier, more adult, and that's what they're going to be into. So I feel like the Monster Squad would really pivot toward being like those kids at your school that just they knew all the cool trivia about Jason. Like, did you know in Nightmare on Elm Street 3? Like those guys, the guys who
Yeah.
like they brought Fangoria rolled up in their
I
back
was gonna say
pocket to
they
lunch.
had a Fango subscription. Yeah. Well, and to be fair, we saw a little bit of that in Monster Squad because they talked about Groundhog Day, and it was like a fake slasher movie in that universe, and how this was like, I don't know, part 7 or part 8 or what, I forget what number it was, but like the dad was talking to him about it. He's like, I thought they killed him in the last one. He's like, they did. He came back from the grave, and they're like, he always comes back from the grave. So like, there were already kind of like digging on slasher, but like their clear obsession was the old monsters. So it's like we can already see that pivot starting in the movie. So it makes sense that they would continue that pivot and go full blown, horror hound, like, gore kids. Like they'd want the slasher movies, they'd want the crazy latex special effects, they would get into that kind of thing. So yeah, I think it makes perfect sense for them to graduate up to that.
Yeah, so like I said, we thought when we were talking a little bit ahead of time, trying not to improv too much, but you needed to have some kind of a hook. And we thought this would be a really fun hook, and it would be a way for us to, to do what we do in Raised by Rentals, which is, hey, if we had keys to the kingdom, we could do whatever we wanted. We don't have to worry about which studio has the rights to this character or that character. Like, this is our Fantasyland. We can do whatever we want. Um,
Right.
so instead of having a movie where we bring in Dracula, the Mummy, Gilman, Wolfman, Frankenstein, well, what if we had, Jason and Freddy and Michael Myers and Chucky,
Hmm.
um,
We bring in some of those guys.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think that there's a pretty cool idea that we came up with that'll work for here. So, yeah, so the setup is going to be a couple years later. The kids are super into horror. We'll have to kind of figure out like if their personalities are different, and kids really grow up a lot, especially in middle school, man. Like from your
Oh
son,
yeah.
like they become like different people, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and you figure if they were 12 and like Rudy was 13, so these guys would be like 14, he'd be 15, so
mhm.
he was already starting to get into the whole chasing girls thing. He's definitely going to be more into the, teenage shenanigans than movies, but and then we're going to have was it Eugene? I don't know how much younger Eugene was, but let's just say if the kids were like 12, he was probably like 10 or 11.
Yeah, I
Like I
think
feel
10
like
makes
he was a
sense.
year or two behind him. Yeah. So he would be kind of like the age the rest of the kids were, when the movie started. And while I could not find Phoebe's exact age anywhere listed, I did see an interview with the actress where she referred to herself as 5-year-old Phoebe in the movie. So let's just say she was 5.
Yeah,
So she'd be 7 in this one.
yeah,
So still a little kid, still the
hmm,
annoying little sister type thing.
yeah.
Um but yeah, like for the sake of expediency, while we do normally try to figure out like, okay, how can we make this where it could actually have come out, like you said, we're not going to worry about the licensing rights because it would be impossible. We did have, I gotta mention this, we did have a joke where originally when we batted this idea around, we are like, well, think about how ridiculous it would be to get all of these different studios together. Why don't we just do like fake versions of each
Hmm.
character? So we had like Johnny Knife Hands and the goalie. And
Yep.
so while that is really funny, and I still do really like that idea, I think it's just more fun to do a slasher camp idea and be like, fuck it. All the toys are in the toy box. We're just going to play with them. So don't worry about who owns what franchise.
Yeah, exactly. And to your point, like, if something like this were to ever happen, again, you could just put those skins on top of the characters. We
Yeah.
one of the jokes I wrote down is that, the goalie would be the slasher from a series of movies called Unlucky 13. And I think it would be funny if like the kids go to see a movie at the drive-in and it's like Unlucky 13, Part 13.
The unluckiest.
Yeah, exactly. That goalie's pissed.
Exactly. I still love the name Johnny Knife Hands though.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, it's so silly. Oh
oh
man.
god.
Yeah, so okay, so let's just jump right into it. We talked a lot about Monster Squad and kind of intro this. So basically what we're saying is, okay, like I said, the kids they're horror hounds. Like then that's exactly the perfect way to think of them. And so I think we should just kind of jump right in where we
Mhm.
introduce them. They're still friends, they're still together. Maybe Phoebe's tagging along. You mentioned Rudy being a little bit more of like a skirt chaser now, and I could definitely see that. He was like the cool kid. He was kind of like a greaser kind of a kid,
Mhm.
and I'm picturing him as leaning very heavily into like the hair metal, or he would be a huge Motley Crue fan. That's the kind of guy he would
Yes.
be. He would have like his hair long and like all teased out like Nikki Sixx. He would be wearing like studded bracelets and like ripped
Yep.
Ozzy Osbourne shirt, but he always seems to just be hanging out with girls all the time. It's like he's just hanging out with these like blonde groupie types, even though he's like a fucking 15-year-old kid.
Perfect. Oh my god. Now I can't stop picturing him looking like Nikki Six, and it's cracking me up.
Yes,
Um
exactly, exactly. So, Mike, you had an idea of how to get us started, so I'll toss it to you.
okay. So I think like one of my favorite horror movie tropes is the cold opening. I love a cold opening. I think it's silly. It can be used for like it can be used really well. Sometimes it can go way too fucking long where it feels like a whole movie unto itself, but that can still work. And I'm going to cite Friday the 13th the remake as an example cuz that feels like we got an entire fucking movie before
Hmm.
the opening credit.
Yes, yes.
But I do love a cold opening. So I feel like with this movie, we would open up like a stereotypical slasher movie, like maybe like see some girl in the woods, like looking for her boyfriend, like Johnny, kind of like walking around, and like you hear something creaking and cracking, like stepping on twigs behind her. Eventually, she's gonna turn, and we'll have some like burlap sack head, killer with like I don't know a meat hook or something, just like raise it up, have her scream. We're gonna pan out and we'll see like a crowd of people watching this, and then like the hook comes down, splatters across the screen, and it'll be like I don't know, like Meat Hook 27, coming this summer. And the crowd goes nuts, and we're gonna pan in on the crowd, and we'll see much older Sean, Patrick, maybe Horace. We'll have a couple of the guys at a horror movie convention.
Nice. Yep.
So they're seeing like this sneak preview trailer of like upcoming movies. So we'll kind of do that, and then we'll cut to the two or the three of them like walking through the crowd of the horror convention, chatting about how awesome it is. Oh, I can't wait to watch this. I can't wait to see this. And maybe we could have Rudy. Maybe Rudy's like hanging out at one of the booths like with the booth babes, like, so how's it going,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Like he's hitting on them. We come out into the convention floor. Maybe we can have like Eugene and Phoebe and everyone else like meet up with them, and they all got their goodie bags and stuff, and we're just gonna see a smorgasbord of horror references. We'll have like friggin various Frankensteins and Wolfmans, all sorts of like plushies and toys and posters and t-shirts and everything, like bootleg DV or bootleg VHS, all that, because it's in the 80s. Um, and eventually we're going to see a little booth with all sorts of weird eclectic collectibles. Like we'll have some of the old model kits from the 50s, like comic books, all that. Be a little Asian man sitting behind the counter, and they're going to walk up there, and Sean is going to notice a replica of the lament configuration from Hellraiser
Nice. Yep.
and be like, oh, this is so cool. It's the puzzle box from Hellraiser. And have the little Asian man be like, what's your pleasure, sir? Like just, a little nod to the Hellraiser movies.
Yeah.
So he's gonna buy what he thinks is a replica of the puzzle box. Dun dun
Dun,
dun.
dun, dun. Nice. Well, yeah, I love it. It's a perfect setup. It's very like, Gremlins, right? With like, buying the
Mm-hmm.
the unique
The
item.
Mogwai.
Yeah, the unique like collectible from like the old, Asian mystic,
Right.
couple of quick notes I think would be fun, to kind of pepper in here is we should have, one of the kids, it doesn't matter which one. Rudy would actually be kind of funny, but if they were like talking to some guy at a booth who's like telling them about his like, the new vampire flick, man, is going to totally revolutionize the way that people like think about vampires. Like none of that like, dumb like, Dracula and like wooden stake stuff. These are like real vampires, man. And then just have the kids like roll their eyes and like, put the the mock-up of the VHS tape down and like wander off like, oh, okay, real vampires, huh?
Exactly. Be like, been there, done that.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man. And then
Oh, I like that.
yeah, when they go over and they see the puzzle box, look, we should have them, chat a little bit because of course, all of this dialogue we need to set up who the characters are, remind the audience who everybody is, we'll say everybody's
Right.
name, that kind of thing. And one of the things that we talked about ahead of time is that the reason that I think that, spoiler alert, like, using something like Hellraiser as like, the sort of big bad for our story is that those movies are a little too adult. Even for kids in the 80s who watch horror
Mm-hmm.
movies, the Hellraiser movies are a little adult. Like they're, yeah, as with my kids, we always use the term like when we watch a movie, sometimes I skip through the sexy stuff,
Right.
and there's like just a lot of that because it's very like, BDSM, kind of focused and on
Oh
like pain
yeah.
and pleasure, and it could be a little uncomfortable. But what I think that's what makes, a character like Pinhead in a series like Hellraiser a good hook for like a big bad is just like Dracula, who is like literally like kidnapping and like abusing teenage girls. Like it's like whoa, like this is like for real to these like 12-year-old kids. This is like the next
Right.
level of that. Like they're really into Jason, but like one of them should say something like, I don't know, man, I haven't seen those Hellraiser movies. Like I heard those are like they go really far, like or whatever. Like there's some kind of comment to explain what I'm trying to explain, where like those movies are taboo. Like, you know,
We
Texas Chainsaw
I
Massacre is cool, but like Hellraiser is like a little much.
Right. Well, we should even have it like when Sean's like the one freaking out about it. Like we should have Eugene maybe pipe up and be like, "My mom says I'm not old enough to watch those yet," and have like Sean be like, "Yeah, that's what my parents said too. I still watched them though." Like kind of
Yeah.
like he snuck them because everybody knew that kid. Because with me again, Hellraiser was one of those movies that I wasn't like my parents weren't too keen on me watching, but my friend Rodney Farrell, I'll never forget it. He's the one that's like, "Dude, you got to watch Hellraiser. They're so good." And then I finally convinced my parents to let me rent them for my birthday weekend. I rented part 1 and 2. And it was one of those things I was supposed to have a big sleepover, and I ended up catching the flu. So I was sick as hell, so I had to cancel
Oh,
my
that
big
sucks.
sleepover party. But I had the movies, and I was like, I'm gonna watch these, and I watched them while sick with the flu. So like I always had this icky feeling about the first two Hellraiser movies because that's my memory of how I
Hmm.
felt when I was watching them. So even now when I watch them, I still get like that icky vibe, you know. But yeah, it definitely was one of those like I don't know, you can watch Freddy, but Pinhead, that's a bit much. So it totally makes sense to have that joke here where Eugene's not old enough to watch him, and the rest of the kids maybe aren't even old enough to watch him, but like some of them did. They
Yeah.
snuck it.
Yeah, or maybe Sean is the only one. I think that might even be kind of a good approach to
Yeah.
it. Like that think about it this way, like you've told this story on multiple podcast episodes, both here and on the Boogeyman's Closet, that like when you were a kid you watched a bunch of horror movies, your dad and your older siblings were into it, but you didn't watch the Texas Chainsaw Massacre until you were older, because that
Hmm.
was like the one movie where your parents were like, no, we got to draw the line, like that movie's fucked up.
Yep.
So I would
Exactly.
I'm thinking the same thing here. Like their parents are all into them watching horror movies, but like they draw the line at Hellraiser. But Sean was like, he was the one who like snuck out to the drive-through, or he watched it from the roof. Remember, he could see the drive-through screen
Yep.
on the roof of his house, so he like snuck out on the roof and watched Hellraiser when his parents didn't know he was watching it. So he feels like he's very like worldly. He's very mature, and and he's telling everyone else in the group about, oh, these movies are amazing. And maybe we find out that like Patrick is like, yeah, I snuck one, man, and like I got halfway through and I couldn't finish it, man. you know
It was too scary.
yeah, and it really just sets, we're just gonna set the tone that Hellraiser is just like at a next level.
Right. And yeah, like so like and because again, Sean's going to be the one that's excited about the box, so he goes to purchase it, and much like in Hellraiser where the guy in the movie is just like, oh, it's always been yours, like that type of thing. Maybe the guy tells him like, he's like, ah, for such a fan of or such a connoisseur of the dark arts, I will give it to you for free as your gift, that type of thing. Like he just kind of hands it over. It's like something as a fan of horror you should recognize, but you're 14, so you're gonna be like, cool, free shit,
Yeah, exactly. Woohoo! Yeah.
But like we should have them talking during this sequence about the big slasher movie marathon at the drive-in. How there's going to be like the horror convention is sponsoring it, and they're going to be showing on each screen at the drive-in. They're going to be showing a different slasher movie. So there's going to be like Friday the 13th Part 3 on one, and like Nightmare on Elm Street 3 on another, and Chucky or Child's Play on one, and Halloween 2 on another, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre on another. And like, so there's just going to be like tons of people down at the drive-in all watching different slasher movies, and it's just going to be like this big freaking party. So of course the kids are going to go there.
Yeah.
They got it. It's like the horror event of the summer. So
Yeah.
we should have like maybe do we want to have Rudy be 16 and already have a car?
No, I thought of that already, actually. No, he,
Okay, all
he
right.
should be 15, but he's a badass, like, rebel without a cause type of guy. So, no, we'll have him, like, we at some point, we'll cut to them driving up to the drive-in, like, in Rudy's car, and he's driving, like, a convertible, and then one of the kids is like, hey, Rudy, like, did you get your license early or something? Like, isn't this like your grandpa's car? And he's just like, and of course Rudy says something like, like, who needs a license? Like, like he'll never miss the car. Like he never, like whatever. Like he just makes some kind of comment that he basically stole his grandpa's car, and like, like who's gonna notice? And it's the '80s. Like parents didn't pay attention to what their kids were doing.
God, no. Nope.
Nope.
It was the Wild West.
I mean, he was like 13 in the first movie, smoking cigarettes and like, spying on girls and stuff. I mean, he's the kind of kid who would,
Yeah.
he would take his like, grandpa's like, like I don't know, 1950 something, convertible Chevy and like roll up like a fucking badass to the drive-in, and then maybe he tells all the kids like, go get some popcorn and stuff, and because he's gonna go mac on the girls and try to have them like come and hang out in the convertible with
Right.
him.
Because he's got a set of wheels, of course. And I mean, and we see in the first movie he's not above stealing shit because he steals that bow and arrow from that archery range.
Yeah, exactly.
He just walks up and looks around and yoinks both of them and takes off.
Right.
So okay, I like it. So yeah, so we'll do that. We'll have them go, like we'll cut to them going to the drive-in. We'll do that whole joke about Rudy not being old enough, but he took his grandpa's car. I love that. So yeah, so the kids will all be sitting there. Rudy he'll be going, he'll be hitting on some girls, maybe like Eugene and Phoebe, or Eugene and Horace or someone go and get snacks. And it'll be like, I only want to have like one or two of the Monster Squad sitting in the car talking while the movie's playing. So like they're watching some movie and Sean will be fucking with the box.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe
Yep.
have Patrick be like, I don't know, man. Like the movies are pretty clear. Like you shouldn't open that, right? Like, isn't that like the whole point of the movie? And have Sean be like, it's just a collectible, man. Like, I just want to see if it can transform the way it does in the film. Like, just kind of back and forth. Like he's fucking around with it. And you'd think, having experienced real monsters, he would be a little more cautious.
Right.
But he's a preteen or young teenager. He's brash. He's invincible, like we all thought when we were that age.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So he should he should start to open the box, and then again, just like in the movie, the light will start like kind of glowing out of it, and it'll start moving on its own. And have Patrick be like, "What are you doing, man?" He's like, "I'm not doing this." He's like, Sean, what are you doing?" Have it just like fly out of his hands, and have them look up, and standing in front of them in the drive-in, like cars all around, there's just Pinhead holding the box, looking at them. He does like the whole like, "You opened the box, I came," like, and then have him look around and see all the carnage. And I'm picturing like one of those like aerial 360 shots where we see Pinhead centered in the drive-in, and we pan around and we show individually all the different screens, and have like a death scene happening on each screen, and have Pinhead just like marveling at all of the horror around him, and have him be like, like, "What wonderful world have I stumbled upon?" That type of thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
all of this magnificent suffering, and it's entertainment to these people. Just like
Nice.
totally mystified by the fact that everyone here loves the suffering. So he pulls the various monsters from the screen to be his minions.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. This big like cinematic moment where like lightning shoots out of like the box, or his fingers, or
Mm-hmm.
fucking the pins on his head. I don't know, whatever. Right. Like
Yep.
it just like goes, and it's like shooting all around the movie screens. Yeah. To your point, and it's like you know Friday the 13th Part 8 came out in 1989, but since this is like a festival, like a convention kind of
Yeah.
a thing, I feel like we got to go Part 6. We got to go Jason Lives. Like
Perfect.
that's the
Let's go
perfect.
with one of the best.
Yeah, it's a great look, and like I'm just picturing, like what one of the scenes in the movie where Jason pulls the machete back, and then he just like looks at the camera, you know.
Yes. Yes. So we'll have like, yeah, he pulls Jason out, and then he pulls Chucky out, and pulls Michael Myers and Leatherface and Freddy. And like at this point, you're gonna have people screaming, and like, we're gonna do the montage crowd scene where we'll see like Rudy with the girls, like he's got his arm in front of the girls, and like there's wind blowing and blue light everywhere. And like we'll see like people jump. Well, maybe like fucking EJ and Derek are at the snack counter
Yeah.
with Horace, and they just like jump over and hide behind the snack counter.
Yeah, and
You know?
I picture Horace having like on in one arm he's got like a big old like mega tub of popcorn, and the other arm he's
Mhm.
got like the giant like supersized nachos, but he's just like staring at the spectacle like wide-eyed shock, but then he just like leans over and grabs a nacho with his mouth, you know?
Yes.
He like never takes his eye
Like
off a pinhead, but he's like, I got snacks.
this like slow, almost like when a dog knows it's not supposed to bite something. It's like keeping eye contact with you, and it's like, "Ow." It just
Yeah.
like leans in and bites it.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
I love that because that dude. That's what I do when I'm at the movies with a big bucket of popcorn. Is I'll just lean in and bite the popcorn while I'm
Right.
watching the movie.
And like I occasionally like to get nachos, and usually they're like expensive. They don't give you enough cheese, but like occasionally
Right.
because I fucking love nachos. But like
Hmm.
I always feel like I go to bite a chip, and it's like right when the movie gets really quiet, and I'm like waiting for like a jump scare or something so I can crunch it. So because it seems really loud in my head, you know.
Oh my god, I literally just did that the last time when I went to go see Superman. I was eating popcorn and I'm like, it got real quiet, and I'm like, I don't want to chew down because I feel like if I chew, everyone's gonna hear, even though they can't. But I'm still like in my head, I can't do it. And then once it got loud
Right.
again, I started chomping on my popcorn.
Oh god, I went to go see Bring Her Back, which just came out recently. Which, oh my
Mhm.
god, dude, I cannot recommend that movie enough. It's from the same guys who made Talk to Me.
Yeah,
Such a great movie.
I got to see both. Honestly, I know Maurice was yelling at me about Talk to Me, dude. You would love this movie. So yeah, I got to check out both, but I've heard nothing but good things.
Yeah, yeah, Maurice, if you're listening, if you haven't seen Bring Her Back, hurry up and get there, man. It is so good, so good. But regardless, like it's one of these like it's a very tense movie that really draws out like the suspense until like these big moments. And I had gotten down to the bottom of my Coke, and I was like slurping, and it was really quiet, and I'm like, but I'm so thirsty. I'm like I was like waiting waiting for something to happen, like I need the tension to break so I can slurp the bottom of the soda.
That's funny.
Anyway,
Oh my,
yeah, yeah,
yes. So we'll do the montage, like the drive-in montage. So we see all the different kids, like what they're doing, all the people like reacting. Like we're gonna have, of course, people like trying to peel out of the drive-in, and there's gonna be like cars hitting each other, people screaming and yelling. Pinhead like all this like blue lightning, connecting to him to all the screens. We're gonna see the different slashers appear, and immediately they should go like it's on, like it's time to have fun. So have like they're all standing there and just have this one moment of silence before Chucky's like and like runs off and like starts
yes.
chasing some girls, and then have like Freddy jump on one of the convertibles and like start slashing the shit out of it with his claws, like cackling. Jason is just like walking at a car that's like driving toward him, and then it starts reversing, like
Yeah.
trying to get away.
And he never like changes pace. He's just
No.
walking like, "Don't worry, I'm coming."
And see, like, we'll have like I don't know, like Michael Myers is just raising his knife and walking at a couple, like kissing in a car, and they're like screaming. Have Leatherface like chasing people over by like the hot dog counter. Just have like just chaos happening. Rudy and hit. Oh, good.
Sorry. Yeah, I want Leatherface. Leatherface should just like take the chainsaw, like you said, like right to the snack bar. And what was the bully's name? You mentioned it a minute ago. It's like EJ or something.
EJ.
Yeah,
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 EJ and Derek.
yeah. EJ and Derek are like hiding behind the snack bar, and then Leatherface just fucking barrels through the wall of it like the Kool-Aid Man with his like chainsaw going, and they you see them literally piss themselves, like the puddle comes out, you know.
He should like swing the saw down and get it stuck in the popcorn maker,
Yeah.
and have like we'll pan down to the two of them screaming on the floor, peeing their pants as popcorn is flying all over
Yeah.
them.
Yes, exactly. And then have like because they're kids, like you gotta have like the guy who works there come out in his little paper hat and be like, "Hey, you can't be back here!" And he just gets like sawed in the throat while the kids run away.
Right. So then like we'll have like all the kids like convene back at Rudy's car, and like Rudy and the like, and we should even have like, because it's the 80s, we got to have this joke. have Rudy like jump over the door into the car, and have like one of the girls be like, Rudy, are you gonna call me?
Yeah.
Like there's all this chaos happening, and he still had enough game
Yeah.
that this girl wants him to call.
Right? Exactly. And of course, and I can't even do the dialogue, but he's gonna he's gonna shine him on with some perfect line of dialogue, and then like kiss his fingers and and kind of spread it like a peace sign, that thing, and then
Yeah.
he's just gonna
Yes.
he's gonna peel out of there, burn rubber, spit up dirt, and the girls just standing there looking at him like, oh, he's so dreamy, and then Chucky just runs, and they're like, ah, and they run off, and he's like, ha 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 ha, and like he's just chasing them off screen,
Yes.
you know.
I'm picturing that whole scene that you did as he peels out. You see Horace's bucket of popcorn go flying up in the air and like just hit the
Yes.
ground as they're driving away. And then to your point, like we'll have the girls standing there kind of watching, like, oh, he's so dreamy, and then just have Chucky run in from stage left, like, and then have them
Yeah.
run off.
Yes. It'd be so
I
good.
love it.
Oh man.
Oh my
and,
god.
and I love this too because in the runtime of the movie, the convention and getting the box and going to, I mean, I don't know what, 20 minutes, maybe 30
Maybe.
tops, right?
Yeah.
Like this is basically like we're gonna speed through the first act and have this big spectacle at the drive-through, and then while the kids are gonna be in the car, like, oh my god, what are we gonna do? Like whatever, they're already immediately trying to figure out a plan of what are we gonna do, and they're gonna they want to head back to their treehouse base,
Hmm.
and of course Rudy's gonna be the one who's like, you guys still hang out in that treehouse? Oh god, that's so lame. Whatever.
Right.
And like again, through the dialogue, you kind of get the impression that the Monster Squad, it kind of fell apart because they were like middle school kids with like a silly club, and like yeah, they saved the world from Dracula, but like people grow, they're still friends, but like they don't hang out in like the treehouse, quizzing themselves on like will a silver bullet kill a werewolf, uh,
Right.
and of course, Rudy's always off like macking with the girls, and he's at high school now, or at least he's in a. I guess they could all be freshmen at this point, but whatever. He's an older guy hanging out probably with like different kids. So anyway,
Hmm.
so they're gonna kind of be arguing about what are they gonna do. It's like of course Sean's gonna be the one who's like it's time for the Monster Squad to come out of retirement.
And oh, dude, when he delivers that line, it should be like crickets, crickets. Like have them all look and be like,
Like,
Sean, this is bigger than us. Like
yeah,
this is these guys were killing people. Like
yeah, like
like
yeah, it's like we gotta call your dad and make sure that he's like he's gonna call in everybody, and of course then we're gonna cut back to now let's actually see some of these slashers. We cut back to Pinhead like at the drive-in, and it's on fire for some reason, and
yes,
he's just
the
standing there,
screens are burning.
and he has his arms up in that like in that pose where he's like embracing the sky or whatever, like in Shawshank Redemption in the rain. His arms are up, and
Hmm.
and he's just like basking in the suffering and the screaming, and everything's on fire and people are running crazy. But then we're gonna cut to like we see Michael Myers. I don't know, like just walking after somebody really fast, or Chucky jumps on somebody's back and is just like stab, 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 stab in the in the back of their shoulder, right? I don't
Well,
know. Like we gotta see some more of these deaths occur.
I think before we do that, we should do like you said, we have them at the treehouse. We do the whole, like it's time for the Monster Squad to to be back in action, or however we want to word it, and have like I said, this big, should be what a big fanfare moment would be, like where all the people put their hands in, like including the
Hmm.
dog, like in the first movie.
Yeah.
But it's like total crickets. Like Sean's got his hand in, and everyone's just looking to be like, Sean, this is too big. Like they killed people, man. Like we got to get your dad. Like have them just kind of like, so we see that there's doubt amongst the group. Like they're not the the confident and cocksure children of that they used to be.
Right.
Um, so we pan back to the drive-in. To your point, we see the big thing with like the screens are on fire and all that, and have like all the slashers kind of standing around Pinhead because he summoned them, and have him like basically talk to them like like go forth and bring me suffering,
There you go.
and then have them like do the thing where they run out, and maybe he looks at Jason, he goes, the children, find them, like sends him off to go, and kind of like with Frankenstein and Dracula,
Hmm.
how he's like, you have to bring me these children, and Frankenstein's like, children, that whole thing. So kind of like Jason just kind of nods and walks off. But yeah, to your point, now when he says, bring me suffering, we see Chucky like just immediately should leap on someone's back, because I love that mental image you just painted where he just jumps on the back. He's like stabbing the fuck out of him.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
have maybe Michael Myers is standing there and he like turns and he looks as like someone tries to run by and he just like puts his butcher knife out and
Yeah.
clotheslines him with it.
Yes, exactly. I was trying to think of something cool like that. Yeah, no, I like this idea where Pinhead kind of like sicks Jason on the kids. I think it should be more of like, he's like, find me the one, whose soul is tied to the box and like bring him to me, because
Yeah.
just because, of course, you mentioned Jason and children in the same sentence, and my first thought is he's not going to do that. Jason's not going to go after those kids,
Yep.
So it has
Jason
to.
won't kill kids.
Exactly. So it has to be more of like, of course, Jason's going to give him that like, puppy dog, head tilt look, and maybe Pinhead like bathes him in blue light or something, and then Jason gets like momentarily kind of brainwashed, and then you just see him he just starts walking in a straight line like right into the woods, like his
Mm-hmm.
he's going to go there as the crow flies, obviously, while the rest of them are just going to go crazy, and then that's when you see the sequence where we kind of end this scene where Pinhead does the arms up, in the middle of the drive-in, just surrounded by fire and chaos and screaming and slashers killing people, and he's just like having this orgasmic smile of joy.
And just kind of like cackling into the night as
I love it.
yeah, we should also do like we should have like cut to the police station, have the phones ringing off the hook and all that. Have like it's chaos. Like they're getting call after call, because remember there was like a ton of like hundreds of people at that drive-in. So of course the police station is going to get overwhelmed with calls, and we should have Dell. We should see Sean's dad there, and like have the different phone calls like, what a living doll murdered your brother, like what are you talking about, or like some
Hmm.
guy with knife fingers slashed your car open, a guy with a chainsaw killed the popcorn vendor, what are
Wait,
you talking about?
wait, wait,
Like,
wait, wait. I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you. When he's like,
yeah,
he should say, wait, a guy with knives for fingers, like like killed your husband. Dream on.
yes, 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 yes. So we have like all that, but of course Sean's dad, he's gonna like come out of his office, he's smoking, like hears all, like sees all the different phones like like all ringing off the hook and different cops answering, and like he's hearing this montage, and have him be like, oh god, not again, and have him just run to his car, because remember before he was like a little hesitant
Hmm.
to believe, but once he saw Dracula, he was like, Sean wasn't lying. I need to save the day. So he's
Yep.
already experienced it once. He's gonna want to make sure his family is okay. So yeah, so Dell will just like rush out, jump in the car, and start heading home. Now, cut back to the treehouse where Sean's trying to convince everyone. It's like, yeah, no, but we gotta stop them. We're the Monster Squad, guys. Like, they're monsters. The police don't know how to handle this. They're gonna get killed like last time. Remember the creature, the Wolfman? They killed those guys. Like, I don't want to see any more people die. So he's gonna be doing that whole thing. And then we have the knock on the treehouse door, and have Phoebe be like, "You guys, I want to come up." Be like, "Go away, Phoebe the Phoebe. Get out of here." And then just have this fist break through the fucking door. And have do the cue of the like have that, and
Yeah.
Jason just pop up, and everyone scatter to the corners of the tree, and Phoebe's on his back.
Yes. Like.
She's like, let me introduce you to my friend, you guys.
Yes. And of course, they're all gonna piss themselves scared of Jason, and he's gonna like take that menacing step forward, but then stop and look. He looks at Patrick and looks at Eugene. He looks at Horace, and it's like he's like looking at him like, nope, you're a kid. Nope, you're a kid. Like he's like he doesn't kill
Yep.
kids. Again, just like in part six, they made that they really drove it home when he was in the cabins with the counselor or with the kids
Mm-hmm.
at camp, and then maybe have him look at Rudy and then like take a couple of steps forward and have Phoebe,
Yes.
because like Rudy's a little bit older and he looks a little bit more like a teenager, but Phoebe's got to be like, no killing my friends.
Yeah, I love that. So yeah, no, exactly that. Like have him do the thing where he steps into the treehouse. They're all like against the wall, like, holy shit, it's Jason Voorhees. Like they're all freaking out, and have him like looking around, like doing the slow scan of each, and then turn and see Rudy, and then just kind of like stiffen for a moment and take a step toward him with his machete up, and have Phoebe grab his hand and be like, "No killing Fred." You know? And
Yes.
he's just like, he looks down at her, he looks at Rudy, and Rudy just kind of smiles like, "Ha," you know, like a
Yeah.
little scared, and have Jason like lower his machete and like kind of like slunch his shoulders a little bit, like,
Yeah. Yes. I'm picturing every single scene after this where Jason and Rudy are in the same scene. We just see Jason staring at Rudy the whole time. He's just staring at him.
yes.
Like he's waiting for him to be like you're like waiting for him to get older. It's like you're gonna be a teenager any minute now.
Oh my god, I love that. Oh my god! So like when we do our rocket till you drop montage,
Yes,
it'll just be
exactly.
like Jason staring at him every time.
Yeah, exactly, right. And like, of course,
Oh my god!
because it's got to have a montage, right? And like,
Of course.
Rudy's driving the car, and he's like cruising. He puts the music on. He's bobbing his head, and he goes to look to the side, like he's used to there being a girl there, and it's just Jason staring at him. you know?
Oh my god! Yes,
Oh god.
when we do our montage, we have to have that.
Yes,
That's
yes.
absolutely in there.
Okay, so before we get to the montage, though, I love
Oh,
I love this sequence, and I want to kind of like use it to kind of wrap up where we were going before with like all the Monster Squad guys are like, dude, like we're not the Monster Squad anymore, blah blah blah, and like but now there's Jason is in their treehouse, and again I can't do all the dialogue, but it basically something like Sean's gonna be like like Phoebe, you're the best, like first Frankenstein, now it's Jason fucking Voorhees, and it's a
right.
PG-13 movie. That's the one fuck we get, right?
Yes.
and
Yep.
but then of course Patrick and Fat Kid are like yeah, but like that's awesome, but like last time we had Van Helsing's diary and we had the spell to like cast the demons back into limbo, like what are we gonna do this time? Like Jason's awesome and all, but like a machete can only do so much. But that's when Sean
Right.
is gonna be like he's like, exactly, last time we had the diary, but this time this all started because we opened up that box. Now we have to get the box back and close it to send whatever, all these monsters back to hell or whatever, like whatever he says. But the point
Well,
is that he's gonna kind of use that logic to focus on, we have to get the box.
yes. I think what he should do is like have them be like, just like you said, have them be like, well, Jason's great and all, but what's a machete gonna do against that guy? He literally pulled these guys out of the movies. Like he used magic, Sean. And then have them be like, yeah, and we've seen all these movies. We know their weaknesses. If they
Perfect.
came from the movies, we can use their weaknesses against them. And then we're gonna kickstart the montage with like a
Yes.
rocket till you drop type thing.
Absolutely, yeah. They're gonna like load up the car with okay, so let's stop. So they load up the car with fill in the blank. So because of course
Well,
they gotta have their gear, right? So how are they gonna take everybody down? Like Mike, you're the horror expert here. What are all the weaknesses of these slasher characters?
well, the funny thing is, as soon as I said that, I was like, well, let's see. Leatherface can be killed by anything. He's a human. Chucky can just kind of be dismembered because again his main weakness is the fact that he's trapped in the body of the doll, like he's trying to get out of the doll. So if he's in the doll for too long he becomes human and he can be killed. So I mean he's just a doll, they could dismember him. Michael Myers, I don't really know what his weakness is because it changes in every movie.
Yeah.
But now with Freddy, again, also changes in every movie. But by this point in the 80s, it would be holy water and a crucifix and consecrated ground. So they would need holy symbols to fight Freddy. Um, Obviously they're not going to want to kill Jason. But again, Pinhead, he's demonic. They would probably think holy stuff. Um, yeah, I don't know. Like, so maybe they just talk about like they need to get weapons because like Leatherface is a human. He's just a guy. He's a guy in a mask with a chainsaw. If we can get some guns or something, we can actually fight him. And then have like them be like, well, what about Michael Myers? Be like, nothing can kill Michael Myers. Like just have like some kind of throwaway line like that.
Yeah, exactly. But it would still be fun if they're like, well, we got to try anyway. Like we got to do whatever we can do. Like and then of course, like whatever we can do to stop these guys until we got to get that box back. And maybe it's as simple as they open up the old like steamer trunk that they've got, and inside is like the bow and arrow that Rhodey stole from the archery
Yes.
range, and like the stakes that they had left over from fighting Dracula, and the brides that he created, and it's just like stuff from the old movie, and then they all just we do that like gear up scene where they're like, all right, like we'll get the holy water and the the bow and arrow and the stakes, and maybe they like raid the they raid the like the shed in Sean and Phoebe's backyard, and they get like I don't know, like farm tools, I don't know, like it's like they're just gonna kind of load up with whatever they can come up with, uh,
Mhm.
because that actually would be kind of an interesting joke to your point, if they're like, yeah, we know the weaknesses, we can stop them, and it's like, like what weaknesses, and it's just kind of like a lead balloon moment, like, oh shit,
Right. Well, it could almost be like that, like, oh, silver bullets, the only way to kill a werewolf. Nope, sorry. What, there's more than that. And he's like, well, then what are the other ways? And they're like, car accident with power tools. Like it's
Exactly.
that anticlimactic moment. So we can mirror that, where it's like, we know that we've seen these movies, we know their weaknesses, and then have Rudy like still eyeballing Jason, be like, yeah, and what are their weaknesses? And have like maybe Horace or someone, like, yeah, because we haven't had Horace speak too much. Maybe he can speak up and be like, well, they got rid of Freddy in the last one with holy water and burying his bones in consecrated ground. Where can we find that? Like, like
Yeah.
have like Patrick be like, and Chucky, well, I don't know. His weakness is that he's in the doll, but he can't be killed. And then I'm like, what can kill Michael Myers? And then maybe that's when we have like, Eugene or something like, nothing can kill Michael Myers.
Yeah,
Like, just have
exactly.
we'll go around the room and just be like, oh shit.
Yeah.
So, but we gotta try. And
Yeah, we
then,
got
yeah, they,
yeah, and then but one thing too, we should lay in, earlier in the movie, is like when they're in Rudy's car. At one point too, he should be like, "Hey, watch it," because in the back seat he has his like cousin's like BB gun that's like a rifle or
Mhm.
something. Um, just because this would be another like weapon that they could take with him, and I'm picturing that like scene, with Horace in the first movie, where he has the gun and he's like, the name is Horace, and I think it would be really
Right.
cool. As I'm sitting here trying to think, like, how could we take him down? But how cool would it be if, like, yeah, maybe they can't stop Michael Myers, but what if they just like shoot his eyes out with BBs, and then he has like this
Like
bleeding
in part
eyes?
two, yeah.
Yeah, like in part two, exactly. Like they would think to do that. Like, yeah, in part two we blinded him and like they were able to get away. So whatever. Like
Yes.
just whatever we can think of to get them, because they may realize that they can't stop the slashers permanently. I mean, they've all had multiple movies in their franchises. Nobody knows how to stop them. They just
Yep.
need to slow them down long enough for somebody to get the box back from Pinhead.
And close it. Yep.
Yep.
Because then that would, because even maybe Sean could point that out, be like, all right, maybe we can't stop them. It's like, but if they're following the movie rules, they all came out of movies. It's like in Hellraiser, they close the box, they send the Cenobites back to hell. It's like, if we close that box, maybe we can stop them. Maybe we could stop them for real, guys. That type of thing. And
Yeah.
have him be like, the look around the room. And I love this. What I'm picturing in my head is like, have all the kids like standing there really unsure of themselves, looking scared, and kind of like, look around, and they slowly put their hands in the circle, one by one by one, and then just see Jason's meaty paw just come down on top of them.
Yes. Yes.
And maybe when he does that, we see Rudy slip his hand out from the group.
Yeah, he's just like, no, I'm out. Oh yeah, wait, hang. I gotta back up. I gotta back. Yeah, exactly, right. I gotta back up. Sorry, and this is like exactly what an improv is sometimes like, when you're like, oh, but what about this? And what about this?
Yep.
But like, yeah, have Sean, when he's giving that speech about trying to convince him, like, we gotta close the box, and like, in the movie, we closed the box and they sent the Cenobites back to hell. That's when Fat Kid's gonna raise his hand, and be like, what's a Cenobite? Because none of them have seen the
Yes,
movie.
that's true.
And then again, when they get to the speech, Sean puts his hand out. They all like reluctantly put their hands in. Rudy puts his hand in, and then Jason puts it right on top and then stares at him. And then right,
Yes.
and then Rudy's just like, "I'll get the keys," and like runs off.
I fucking love it. That's perfect. Oh my god. Oh, I love that visual. Holy
Yeah.
crap.
Oh
So
man. So now we do the montage. They load up all the shit in the car. They got their stakes, their bow and arrow. They go in the steamer trunk. They get Rudy goes out to the car and gets the BB gun and makes sure that it's like loaded, like locked and loaded. Hell, maybe he's got like a fucking like bandolier.
so we do the montage. We see them gearing up, and I like the idea of like when Rudy's like, I'll get the keys, and that kind of kick starting, the montage. But like the kids are gonna peel out of the driveway in Rudy's car as Dell will get home. Like, because remember,
Hmm.
he's like, holy shit, my kids. He's gonna come home. He's gonna find like, his kids are gone. He's gonna go up to the treehouse, and it's gonna look like it's been ransacked because remember they're grabbing all the stuff from their first encounter, like the bow and arrow and all that. And he's gonna be like, "Damn it, Sean!" And like, so now he's gonna be on the hunt looking for his kid. He ain't gonna be worried too much about what's happening in the rest of the city. Like he knows crazy shit's going on, but the cops are gonna be working on that. He's gonna be trying to chase down his two kids because it's like, fuck, my kids are going to fight monsters again, only this time they're serial killer monsters.
Right? Yeah. No, I like that.
So
I like that angle.
yeah, so we'll have the kids gearing up. They'll swing by a church. We'll see like one of them, like maybe they like run in with like some squirt guns and like fill up the squirt guns in the holy water.
Yeah,
It's like,
like in Lost Boys. Yeah, exactly.
yes,
Yeah, that's
exactly.
cool.
So little nods. But while this is happening, we should see like Pinhead just like maybe he's just like walking down Main Street as like his minions are just causing chaos. We could have like I like the idea of Leatherface sawing parked cars for some reason. I don't know why, but just have him just like sawing cars and have like just losing his shit. You know,
Yes.
People get and there could just be like a trail of blood, like because remember we're trying to keep this. It's a sequel to a PG-13 movie. This is a PG-13 movie. We're not going to have a ton of death on screen, but like we could hear a lot of like screaming and like see like killers chasing people off screen and then see like blood hit the pavement, that type of thing. So like they're out there killing everybody.
Yeah, like
um
for some reason I'm just picturing Michael Myers. I don't know why I'm picturing it this way, but I'm picturing it's like you don't really see him killing people. You just see him like walk away like with like blood splatters and screaming. Like it's like he's like walking down Main Street and he like walks in a storefront and then you just hear screaming and blood splatters on the window and he just walks out and
yes.
walks into the next storefront and then you hear screaming and blood and then he walks out and it's like he's just going like door to door, you know?
Yes. Oh my god. And I kind of like the like Freddy and Chucky are like jump scaring people and I'm like like chasing them down alleyways. They're like teaming up and messing with people.
Yes, exactly.
And Leatherface is just this unstoppable killing machine, just destroying anything in his path. Like, I'm gonna kill this car now. I'm gonna kill this lamppost. Like
Yes.
he's causing more destruction to the
Yeah.
town than people.
Yes. And I love these visuals too. Like you said with Freddy, like Freddy and Chucky are like messing around, and like again, everywhere they go is just suddenly on fire. It's like
Yes.
like they just I don't know, like they walk by like there's like a like an ice cream stand or something or one of these like drive up burger places, and they just walk up to it, and you see Freddy just like put his glove fingers out. Everyone screams, and then like they can't run away because the whole place is on fire, like the pool party at the end of like Nightmare Part Two. It's just
Yes.
out of nowhere. Like,
Oh, that's freaking awesome. I also love the fact that like because we're using so many different characters and like they're not gonna get a ton of speaking time. I like the idea that Freddy and Chucky, the two most vocal of our slashers, are just kind of like fucking with people. They'll be like,
yeah,
and like chasing after him laughing.
yeah, exactly. And of course, like you're gonna see like cops are gonna pull up, like every cop car they have in the in the precinct is gonna pull up, and they all jump out with their guns, and they're all hiding behind their cars and shooting. And then you see Michael Myers just walking straight at him, and then we cut away to like Leatherface, and then you cut back, and every cop is dead, and Michael Myers is just walking away. you know?
Yup.
I don't know why, but it just seems like this amazing visual. Like you never actually see him swing that butcher knife. He's just like, "Well, I'm coming," like I'll be right with you. You know?
And to be fair, he has killed like tons of cops in those movies, so
Yeah,
he
that's like his
definitely goes after
that's
him.
like his specialty.
Right. But I love this idea because again, PG-13. So we're not going to be able to do all like the super super gory moments, but having these kind of concessions where like Michael Myers walking into the store, the screaming, the blood hitting the window, like you know what's happening, and it's almost making these slashers lighthearted enough where it's like, yeah, they're still killing people, but visually the gag is lighthearted enough where I could see, especially in the 80s, taking kids to this type of movie. My parents would have took me to this in a heartbeat because it's like, yeah, okay, it's got slashers, but there's not a lot of gore.
Yeah,
You know, like it's almost like making them safe. Kind of like how when they made Freddy pajamas and a Matchbox
yes.
talking Freddy toy, you know?
And like, okay, I gotta say this one though. It might be too bloody, or I guess we gotta control it with like the camera angles. But like again, there's all this chaos. It's this. We go from this montage of everyone like suiting up weapons, and then we cut to this like whole, not a montage necessarily, but this whole like chaotic, long drawn out sequence that we're describing, where all the slashers are just like going to town on town,
Yep.
and then we're cutting away, and like we see Leatherface like going after, like I said, parked cars and like parking meters or
Lamppost.
whatever and lampposts. But then and it's loud and there's like this suspenseful music playing. But then at one point we just smash cut to the inside of a butcher shop, no music, totally quiet, and we see Leatherface behind the counter just using one of those deli slicers, and he's just like slicing out some meat, right? And then he's like weighing it out, like a little bit more, a little bit less, perfect pound. He wraps it up, puts it on the counter, he rings the bell, and he picks up his chainsaw and walks away. And then the camera pans over to like the meat counter, and there's just like a dead guy inside.
See, for some reason, I thought you were going to say there's like a little old man standing at the counter holding a ticket, looking really
Yes,
confused.
both. Both, yes, exactly. Like we pan over to the really confused guy, and then we pan over to like the dead body that's like in the cooler, and then like cut back to whatever Pinhead's doing.
I I love it. Oh my god. So yeah, so we're gonna have I don't know exactly. I'm trying to think of like why or like how to get the kids fighting Pinhead. I'm trying to get like where we're gonna get to that part.
Yeah, I
Because
mean,
I know we're kind of speeding through it
yeah,
because a lot of this stuff is going to be montage moments, like singular character moments of like you said, Leatherface doing the butcher shop, Michael Myers doing the different stores, killing the cops. Dell will be looking for his kids. Maybe he drives around, like he goes and checks the drive-in. We see the carnage at the drive-in, and he takes off and like goes to like the malt shop or wherever they were hanging out with Rudy at that one point. And it's just chaos, broken wind, and he's just like panicking looking for his kids. So we could kind of like jump between the three sets where we're seeing what the monsters are doing, we're seeing what Dell is doing, we're seeing what the kids are doing as they're gathering weapons and gear, like gearing up for the fight. And maybe they're like listening to the radio, like trying to find like reports of where the monsters went. So
yeah,
like you get the like breaking news, downtown Main Street is overrun. Like stay, if whatever you do, stay away from Main Street. The cops are warning, blah blah blah. Do that whole thing where it's like, that's where they are. They're at Main Street. And like we
yep,
see the kids, like Rudy's car pulls up with Jason and the kids. And then we see like we see maybe Pinhead is like standing in front of the church. Now remember in the first one, Rudy went to go shoot the lock off the church, and they're like, "Don't do that, man! It's a holy place." Maybe we could have like Pinhead just blow the doors open and
hmm
walk inside, very much like Hellraiser 3.
yeah,
So we could see him like going and like he's defacing the church, because again, that would be a big deal in the 80s,
yeah,
defacing the
exactly.
church.
Yeah, and like a big taboo as well. And I think this would be a
Hmm.
good moment for like Dell. Maybe Dell rolls up and he's like on the radio, like calling in like the National Guard, like like when are you guys gonna get here? Like the whole town is being slaughtered, but
Hmm.
he's not gonna stop doing his job and trying to help out. So yeah, maybe this is when he like rolls up and he rolls into the center of town just because he's like following the chaos because he has like a police band radio, so he can get there first.
Right.
So he's gonna roll up, hop out of his car, do that thing where he's like hiding behind the car with his gun. He sees Pinhead go into the church, so we're kind of seeing that sequence like from his point of view, and like, are we gonna have? Were you planning on having Pinhead like set up like what the church is like his home base, or is he going in
Yeah,
there
kind
like?
of like just kind of like because again Pinhead would be like defiling anything holy, So basically, like
Yeah.
maybe he like blows out the windows and like just kind of like fucks with everything. Like you get you see the lit candles by the altar, like the flames shoot up super high, and he's just kind of like doing his mockery thing that he did in many of them.
Yeah, yeah, like maybe we see like the crucifixes start to melt or something, yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah. So then we got Dell, like Sean's dad, the detective outside, like, basically saying like, come out with your hands up, like we got you surrounded, but it's really just him because all the other cops are dead, but he's just bluffing because he's waiting for like the National Guard to show up or the state police or something. And then yeah, maybe Pinhead like comes out of the church. He's like standing on the front porch. He hears Dell, and he's just like, like foolish mortal, like you seek to, stop my, my reign of, I don't know, like suffering, and like I'm bringing about like, the greatest pleasure like this town has ever seen, or I don't know, I can't do Hellraiser speeches, but
Well,
I was just trying to like get us to the next set piece so that there's something happening between Dell and Pinhead. So when the kids roll up, it's like Sean immediately now has this personal connection because it's like, my dad.
Well, what I was thinking is flip it the other way around, where it's like have the kids get there and have them see like Pinhead going into the church, and like they're all like sitting behind the car like with Jason. And I love the idea of like Jason crouched down like what's going on. Like what's going on, guys? Just so he's like crouched down with the kids. But I like the idea of like Dell shouting out to Pinhead like we have you surrounded, have him be like, oh no, like is that my dad? And have Pinhead, to your point, come out, do the whole like something along the lines of he's in sweet suffering and all that, and have Dell go to shoot him, like just be like fuck this and go to shoot, and we see like one of the magical hook chains
Hmm.
like fly through, like split the bullet. It would be one of those like slow down close up shots, like special effects extravaganzas where we see like the bullet gets split in half by the hook, and have it like fly in and like
Hmm.
take like maybe it hits Dell's hand and like makes him drop the gun, and have Sean like scream out like dad, and have Pinhead smile and be like, oh, there's no more suffering, there's no sweeter suffering than that of a father and his child,
Oh yeah,
like something like
perfect. Yeah.
so he's gonna try to fuck with his dad because he sees the pain that it's causing Sean, the one who called him.
Yep.
So it's like he goes to shoot more hooks out. Maybe like it's grabbing like Dell's clothes, so it's a little less violent, and like dragging him toward Pinhead. And then we could have like while that's happening, maybe like Freddy jumps on the car and he's like, like I mean, I know it's a PG-13, but he's got to drop a bitch. So he's like, drops a bit like, "Here's Freddy, you bitch," like something
Yeah.
like that,
Right.
and have Jason just backhand him and go flying. So like Jason goes stomping off after Freddy, but then like while that's happening, have like Chucky. Like when we pan around the crowd, have Chucky kind of sitting between Eugene and Phoebe and be like, "Hey, how's it going?" And have them like scatter, like they run away.
Yeah.
And then so Chucky chases one of the kids, and then we see like Leatherface. Maybe Leatherface is chasing after Horace. Um, so we have the different monsters chasing the kids, and Sean is going to be focused on Pinhead. He's going to be, trying to save his dad from Pinhead. But again, Pinhead's fucking magic. He's throwing hook chains everywhere. He's flipping cars. He's dragging the dad over. Maybe he like shoots out a hook by Sean. It like cuts his face, and Dell starts screaming, and Pinhead's just relishing in the suffering of like a father unable to protect his own son, like that type of thing. But we could have this montage fight scene. So I want to have like, maybe Horace like tricks Pinhead. We could have some kind of Scooby Doo moment with like maybe the like, I don't know, like uh maybe goes into like a burger place, and like, he's like standing as like one of the little like a Ronald McDonald type statue, and Leatherface just cutting through the tables, and Horace is like crap, just kind of hiding out in there. We could have just I want to have like some shenanigans with each one of the monsters.
Yeah, and I also like in the background, since like Jason like swatted Freddy and like walked after them. As we're like painting around seeing this, we should just randomly see Jason and Freddy like just in the background. Like Freddy just jumps on Jason and starts slashing at him, and then Jason like knocks him off and stalks after them, and then we see him
Mm-hmm.
again, and we see Jason just like slicing Freddy. I don't know, like slicing, through the front of him, and maybe the machete gets stuck and he's trying to pull it out, and Freddy's like laughing at him, whatever. Like the two of them have like they're having their little Freddy versus Jason moments, but just like in the background,
Yes.
which would be funny because like the actual fans of those franchises, like who at this point in 1989 haven't actually seen them cross over yet. It would
Mhm.
it would just give like so many like horror fanboys a bunch of boners in the theater, you know?
Oh hell yeah! So, and that's the thing. Like, we definitely should have these little fights happening. Like, have Rudy like trying multiple different ways to kill Michael Myers. Like, so he's plugging him with arrows, and Michael Myers is just pulling him out and continuing to walk after him. And then maybe he like he has like a firework or some kind of like something that not quite dynamite, but something that'll explode, and like shoots a firework at him and explodes, and he just like walks out of the cloud of smoke, and it's just like he finally gets the BB gun to your point, and he shoots him in the eyes, and then Michael Myers like grabs his eyes. We see the blood drip down the mask, and he's slashing wildly at the air. This is the first time we actually see him really slashing with that knife,
Hmm.
but he ain't hitting nobody because he's blind. So then we have like the whole thing with like Horace and maybe Horace and Patrick, let's say, with friggin' Leatherface. Maybe they end up like tricking him into the meat freezer of the restaurant, and they slam the door, and he's in there just like
Hmm.
sawing at the back of the door. And then we could have Phoebe and Eugene fight off Chucky. So like I don't know what we'd want to have happen there, but definitely like have the two littlest kids kill the littlest bad guy. Um
Yeah,
I just I keep picturing someone drop kicking Chucky,
yeah,
but
yeah. I think with Chucky is it's you never really stop him, but like even when he's been like temporarily defeated, it's always something like they have to burn him or melt him, or like they have to incapacitate his like doll body in some way. So
right.
I'm not sure like what Phoebe and Eugene would do, but like yeah, something like that.
Dude, okay, hold on. So we're on Main Street. So Chucky chases them into a toy store.
Okay.
And because again, Child's Play starts in a toy store, it ends in a toy factory in part two. We'll keep that running with a toy store scene. So we'll go running into a toy store, and they're hiding, and like Chucky be like, "I know you're in here, kitties!" Like kind of walking around, like stabbing random stuff. Like he'll stab like a stuffed elephant. I'm going, I'm like, like he's just having fun fucking with them. I don't know how the fight would go, but have like a Build-A-Bear style workstation
Okay.
and have them like somehow they're gonna get Chucky. Like maybe Eugene like grabs Chucky and runs into the Build-A-Bear station, and they jam his mouth onto one of those like the stuffing
Oh
things,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and they turn it on, have him just be like and like blowing up like the guy in Big Trouble in Little China,
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
and
Yeah.
just fucking explodes into a shower of pink stuffing because can't have the blood, so we'll have the
Yeah.
bloody stuffing fall
Yeah.
everywhere.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I love that.
Once we cut away from that, we should cut back to like Freddy, like kind of maybe like they were in the park of Main Street. There was that like kind of open park area where there was a couple
Hmm.
trees and like benches. We can see Freddy. He's literally like the Black Knight from Monty Python. He's got no arms and legs anymore.
Yeah.
And have Jason stopping away and have him be like, "Where you going, bitch? I'm not done with you." It's
Yeah.
like so for the fans, he's still alive. He's
Yeah.
not dead.
We didn't kill him. Yeah, exactly. Oh man, I love all this. Yeah, and of course we got to get back to like Sean and Dell
Dell,
and
yeah.
Pinhead, back at the church, and I, I feel like Sean maybe at this point like the other kids, like the other squad members have defeated their slashers. They've all come back. Pinhead should have a moment of shock that like how is it that these pubescent I don't know, whelps or whatever word he uses, they've taken down my champions or, whatever. Like
Right.
he's just totally shocked that these like kids, could take down the slashers. And, and then, then we do this like really cool moment where every one of the kids like, pulls a pose, like, Rudy's got his bow and arrow or like somebody's got a knife or one of them has, I don't know, like a, maybe they grabbed like a baseball bat from somewhere when they were like messing with leather, whatever. Like we're gonna go down the line, they're all gonna pull a pose, and basically like we're not just a bunch of like I'm trying to think of the word that Pinhead would say to them. He would call them like powerless weaklings or something, whatever. But
Yeah.
they're gonna be like, we're not just
Powerless whelps.
yeah, we're not just powerless whelps. We're the Monster Squad, and just kind of do that Avengers moment when you see the whole team all posing,
Yes.
getting ready to go into battle.
Oh, okay. Two things before and after that. So right before that, when we cut back to Pinhead with Dell and Sean, we should have like Dell kind of like literally pinned to the ground by all the like chains and hooks, like they're like holding him in place, and he's using the magical like chain hooks to hold Sean up in the air. Like he's just got him by his clothes. Like so it's
Hmm.
no blood, but
Yeah.
he's like screaming like "Dad!" and we can see like the dad is actually hurt. It's like maybe like a trickle of blood coming out of his mouth, and Pinhead's just enjoying the suffering. And then we're going to see the kids run up and have him be like, how is it that these, such powerless whelplings could defeat my champions of chaos? And have him be like, we're not just weaklings, like we're the Monster Squad. Do the whole thing. And when they do the pose, have Pinhead like a smile creep across his face, and see Jason standing behind them, just like breathing heavy. And so
Yes.
he thinks Jason's gonna, and he laughs and he's like, you did not defeat all of my champions.
Mhm.
And have Jason grab Rudy by the shoulder and have Rudy look up at him, and then he just shoves Rudy out of the way and starts walking at Pinhead.
Nice. Yes.
So it's kind of like, for a moment there, it's like, oh shit,
Oh shit.
but
Yeah.
he pushes him out and he starts walking, and like Pinhead's watching, like maybe does like the slow like head tilt, like curious. Like
Hmm.
we see Jason coming at him, and Sean, screams like, the box, Jason, I need the box. And have like the hook chains come flying out at Jason, and he like chops a couple of them with his machete, and Pinhead's throwing more, and they're like hitting into him, but it's not stopping. He's just like, fuck you, and
Hmm.
he's just doing that walk straight at Pinhead. You know, he's gonna get there, and like Pinhead goes to like to shoot more chains, and Jason lops his arm off holding the box,
Nice.
and we just see the arm go flying through the air. The chains that were holding Sean disappear, and he falls to the ground. He scrambles for the box. Pinhead is like just throwing like hook chains into Jason, like yanking parts of him off, as Jason's just hacking at Pinhead. Just like we see the machete coming up and down, we hear Pinhead screaming. We're obviously not going to see the blood, but we're going to see like the hooks grabbing onto like Jason's mask. Maybe here we see Jason's face, because remember, you got to see his face in every movie.
Hmm.
So
Yep.
like the mask cracks, and we see like the zombified Jason like looking down at Pinhead, and do the close up, the face off where both of their faces are in frame, like gritting their teeth at each other.
Yeah, nice, nice. Oh, real quick, I'm also picturing Pinhead as he's screaming. It's not just like the actor like screaming. It's like this overdubbed like echo of like like this the kind of scream that you hear in a movie, and it's like the like in when the Man in Black screamed in the Pit of Despair in The Princess Bride. It's like the scream
Yeah,
that like echoes throughout the entire town. It's like the sound of ultimate suffering. you know
it's you could almost even reuse the sound effect from the first movie when Kirsty sends all the Cenobites back to hell, and when she hits him with the like blue light, he goes like that, "Rah!" Like that's, and it kind of like echoes in this like this weird reverberation.
Hmm.
Like you could do that, almost that same sound effect, and just
Yeah.
have it like echo across the city.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so then we have. So is this it? Is Pinhead? So he's defeated. Okay, so Sean's trying to close the box. Do we just show him like struggling with it, or um,
Yeah, because the box, like it wants to be opened. So like every time they go to close the box, you see like that blue electricity like shooting all over the place, and it's almost like trying to push two magnets together that don't, like two negative magnets, like trying to connect them together where they're like
mhm,
pushing apart from each other. Um, that's how it almost looks when they're trying to force the box closed. So have like Sean fighting with it, and like the wind will be swirling around, blue light will be shooting off of them. The other kids will be like all crowded around, like, come on, Sean, come on, close the box. And have like Jason fighting Pinhead, and like we could see like them in the background, like, machete raising and lowering, but like, chunks of his jacket getting ripped off by the pin hooks, like type of thing.
yeah,
Um,
okay,
and then eventually like close the box, and that's when we could do that scream.
Okay,
Like
yeah.
Pinhead could, like that we see the blue electricity hit him. He rears back, does the scream, and he disappears, which of course is gonna start to cause the other monsters to disappear.
Yeah, hang on, pause right there before you get to it. Yeah, and I love this. And
Mhm.
when I was picturing while Sean is like struggling to put the box back together, and again, like this is a squad, like this is a team. It's not just Sean's movie, right? Even though he was the one who opened the
Right.
box. So I think it would be awesome if you have, and maybe not everyone because there's a lot of them, but if you had Patrick, Horace, and Rudy all come over, and they like struggle through this strong wind, like they're walking into
Yeah.
like hurricane winds, and they reach out and they all put a hand on like one side of this cube, and they're all pushing from like four different sides, like as a unit, pushing it in, and then maybe this is when you see like Dell struggles to his feet, and he just slams the top of the box closed, and it was like
Yes.
they all have to work together as a group to like to get it to finally snap shut, and then you hear Pinhead's just his scream of ultimate suffering just echo throughout the entire town.
Yes, and then like yeah, like so he'll disappear, like he'll get sucked back into the box. Like we'll see the blue light, envelop him, and it'll kind of like suck back in. But then, much like the first movie with Limbo, we could kind of have like we could see like like lightning, the blue lightning and stuff like flying back into the box, and we could see like the freezer door in the little restaurant pop open and Leatherface like come running out, and he like comes running straight for him. The electricity like zaps him and sends him off into nothingness, like sends him back to the movie. And we can like cut to Freddy like kind of rolling around with no limbs, being like and then like he gets zapped and he's like, oh bitch, goes flying back. One thing we forgot is we should have had somebody yell at Pinhead to go to hell. But
Oh yeah, no, yeah, definitely gotta do that. Exactly.
gotta have maybe like Dell like
Yeah,
go to hell and then slams the box shut.
exactly. That'd be
um
perfect. Yeah, and then we got to cut back to that toy store where Chucky got blown up, and then you just see like there's a piece of his face that's still like in like one piece that's just his face, and then you just hear him go like, "God damn it, not again!" and just like whatever.
yes, like it's his eye and part of his mouth, and it's like one eye's like looking around, and then he's like, "Damn it, not again!" He
Yeah.
gets zapped, and then have Michael Myers just like there's chaos all around him, and he's just kind of like shrugs, gets sent back. And then of course, it's gonna start, the blue light's gonna start hitting Jason, and we have to have our little our little Phoebe moment where she's like, no, don't go, that whole thing, and have him kind of like gently pat her on top of the head, and then maybe he like points at Rudy, just like,
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Like we should show him like okay, so like the mask like didn't come off before, like it just got like knocked off on the side or whatever. But like have him like straighten the mask, because he's always got to like look good, right? He likes his mask,
yeah.
and so yeah, have him straighten the mask and turn around, and yeah, we have this like heartfelt moment, like you said, and then maybe like Phoebe goes to hug him, and he just kind of like hugs her back, and he like looks down at her, like like you do, like you look at the top of someone's head when they're shorter than you and you're hugging
Mhm.
them, and then he just like looks up at Rudy, he just snaps his head and just looks at Rudy with like that one good eye, it's just like
And Rudy's just like, like does
yeah,
like a little shudder.
and then Jason just like fades away, and like, oh, poor Phoebe's gonna cry because like her new friend had to go away just like Frankenstein.
I love the fact that Jason was the Frankenstein character.
Yes, I feel like whenever we put Jason in one of these like movies, and he's by far our like most recurring character.
Oh God, yeah.
Whenever we put him into one of these, there's always like some new quirk that we give him, like some new thing, like he's like when he was knitting sweaters and slasher camp,
Yes.
and and now he's just like, now we know 14 is like the age where he's like, the clock is ticking, like you're almost old enough for me to slash, like because or maybe it's that Rudy is still secretly a virgin, right? And like and
Ah,
Jason was just like, like if you ever pull it off with one of these girls, you and me, boy, you know.
just gives him the finger point, like you.
He's watching him, like his dad, like like I'm watching you, like don't be out there like some hoodlum, like getting into trouble, doing drugs and having premarital sex, like I'm watching you.
And like after he disappears, and Phoebe's like, no, come back, that whole thing. We see the smoking cube in the middle of the ground, like everyone's a little battered and beaten. Main Street is torched, and there's dead cops everywhere. Then we see the army rolling into town.
Right now they roll.
and have them be like, all right, where's Dell? And have him be
Yeah.
like, let's go. Are you guys ever on time? And then end like do the montage song,
Yes, exactly.
the theme song.
Yeah, and then of course, yeah, the theme song starts playing, and then we pan the camera around, and we all see them, and they're like smiling and giving each other high fives and hugging, and like, yeah, we did it, guys,
Yes.
And then maybe at the last minute, like you see Fat Kid, like he pats Sean and Rudy on the shoulder, like, hey guys, like doesn't say anything because he always has this like shocked expression on his face, right? He like gets their attention, and of course, all we're hearing is like like the the happy like rock song that they're playing over the credits, but then you see them stop, like, what is it, Horace? And then they look, and then the camera switches around to their point of view, and there's just like a mountain of bodies all down the street. and, then, and then we cut back to their faces, covered in blood as they look at each other like, whoa, and then like fade to black.
We got work to do. Work to do. Play the Monster Squad theme.
Exactly. But it's like you're gonna have this moment where they're like this joyous moment where they're all cheering and patting each other on the back, like, yeah, guys, we did it. Except that the whole fucking town is dead. Oh man, we did it.
Oh man, dude, that was fun. I was nervous as hell going into this. Because I was like, how the hell do we do a follow up to Monster Squad? It's kind of one of those beloved movies.
Right? Yeah.
But oh man,
Well, and that was part of the reason
that
why we were saving it. At least in my mind, I wanted to save this one for like the big 100th episode special because it's like a big deal. And I feel like if we were gonna, pick anything, and there's lots of things we could have picked that I think would have been, up to the level of like our 100th episode special. But this is one of those
mhm,
movies that, from the very early days of you and I trying to figure out like, well, what properties can we play with? It has always come up, but it's always been like, yeah, I don't know, like it's kind of untouchable. Like,
right,
there's some things you just don't want to mess with, even if maybe they're not perfect, but they're perfect for like what they are.
exactly. And that's the thing. It's like this. It's just. I mean, we had that idea, God, because this idea has been lingering in the archives for a while.
Yeah, a long time.
Like it's at I want to say like season 2 maybe that we floated this idea about Monster. I mean, I could be wrong, but I thought it was that far back.
No, I think you're
You
right.
know,
It,
we
it was never that like seriously considered. It was just something we had on the idea list of, yeah, and it was even the title, like the slasher summer, has been there almost since the beginning. It was like, yeah, we'll do Monster Squad 2, but it'll be slashers instead of Universal Monsters. And that was all we had. That was the whole elevator pitch. We didn't,
yeah,
flesh any of it out because it was like, yeah, but like what do we do with that? And instead we did things like slasher camp where we could play where like the scope was a little bit smaller. It was Freddy and Jason's instead of like six slashers from six different movies. you know
oh man, and yeah, that was when we were discussing like, do we want to have the fake slashers from other movies?
Mhm.
Like oh god, was it the Garden Party Killer from the Blob
Yeah,
remake? And
yeah, yeah. Was that what it was? It was the back in our Summer School 2 episode. Wasn't that it? They were working on like, Garden Party 14 or something, Dave and
something like that,
Chainsaw.
yeah.
We were gonna try and do some callbacks where there had been a few times in movies where we've just randomly thrown off some like stupid slasher movie idea and be like, well, if we do these fake slashers, like the goalie and Johnny Knife Hands, it'd be funny if we threw some of these other guys in that we just kind of like randomly dashed off in the past and didn't really take seriously, you know?
Right. But I think this was definitely the way to go because you get the Freddy and Jason fight that fans would have gone nuts for in the 80s. And you get to have Jason, showing that he actually doesn't kill kids, like because a lot of people forget that.
Yeah.
Jason. Now Michael Myers, he'll fucking kill a kid. Freddy, he'll kill a kid.
Hmm. Yeah.
Chucky, oh fuck yeah, he only pretty much kills kids.
Yeah, that's his specialty. Yes. So this is awesome. I'm super excited that this worked out. And I even like the fact that we were stumbling a little bit and backing up and backing up. But I like that it really like I mentioned before, it kind of peels back the curtain on like this is really improv. Like yeah, we talked about it ahead of time a little bit, so we had some kind of an
Mhm.
idea of what we were going to do, but pretty much everything after, like, hey, let's have all the slashers come out of the drive-through screens. Like pretty much everything else was just on the fly. And this is
Yeah.
a lot to to kind of figure out. It's a lot of cool stuff to try to like fit into an idea. And like not everything is just going to come easily. Like the first thing you think of isn't necessarily always going to be this genius idea. Sometimes you got to go
Oh
back and be
yeah.
like, oh, hang on a second, let me try that line of dialogue for a third time. But we'll get there.
Well, and to be fair, like when we discussed it beforehand, really it was just like, how do we get, like you said, how do we get the monsters? So it was like the idea of a convention and then, the chaos erupting at the drive-in. But we didn't know like how it was really going to end. We didn't know like what are the monsters going to do? Who knows? I
Mm.
think the only thing was that Jason will be the Frankenstein allegory.
Yeah, exactly. And even that, like the idea that Jason, like, you know, wouldn't that he would be like the safe like friend of theirs, that he would hate Rudy, all that stuff. Hell, even the
Hmm.
horror convention thing, like that was your idea that you told me about today. So like I didn't
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
I didn't know that we were going to do that. So yeah, I really like this. This is a really, it's a fun example of, the kind of off the cuff shit that we do. And like, yeah, we do plan shows
Hmm.
ahead of time because we have to, so that we're, not just hitting record and being like, hey, you got an idea? you know uh,
Right.
but
And to be fair, we sometimes still do that where we're like, I don't know what's going to happen. And then we'll sit here and talk for like an hour and be like, do you want to just record another day? Because I don't think we're going to be able to figure this out today.
yeah, that has definitely happened. Or we've just been like, hang on, like go to the next idea, we're here, let's record the next one, and like we'll come back to this
Yeah.
one. you know And like, we talk a lot
Oh, man.
about like what we have coming up on the schedule. We have some really fun stuff coming up on the schedule this year. We have more on the schedule than we're going to be able to fit in this season, really.
Hmm.
And some of that is because we really want to try to fit as many of these as we can. We get kind of overzealous. We've had a lot of scheduling problems this year, which has put us a little bit behind schedule. But I definitely want to focus on the ones that we definitely want to do, but there's like six other episode ideas that we could do. But at the same time, like let's see how it goes, because I also don't like to force it. We have forced it before to try to like do an installment in like a series that we started, and
Hmm.
realize that forcing it is not like the best approach.
Exactly. And it's sad that that has happened, but yeah, you can't have too much hubris when you're doing these kind of things.
Yeah.
Because we were like, yeah, we got this, and then we're like, oh fuck, we don't got this at all.
We don't cut this at all. Granted, we do normally have a lot of hubris toward like we can fucking do anything with these stories.
Yep.
Oh man, but I'm super excited that we were here to do our 100th episode with Jason again and all of his buddies.
Hmm.
I mentioned a few times before that we were planning on doing a two-parter for the 100th episode special, and that is actually still true, because I will make the
Hmm.
announcement now. And this is the first time that I have ever announced what the next episode will be on an episode. I've done it on Count Creepy Head a couple of times, but this is the first time I've ever said, tune in next time for episode 101, where we do an immediate follow up to this episode with the second half of our summer slasherama, where we do Slasher Camp 3 Killing Time.
Yes. Yes. I can't wait to go back to Slasher Camp.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. And we knew we had to do that. We knew we were gonna do it. And that was the other reason we were kind of like, should we do Monster Squad 2 or should we do Slasher Camp 3? Because they both have Freddy and Jason and like other slashers in them. Like, which one should we do? Can we make Monster Squad part of the Slasher Camp universe? Like, can they cross over? And finally we're like, fuck it, dude. Like, why are we picking? Let's just do both.
Exactly. Because yeah, I mean, Slasher Camp is totally its own animal at this point. Like, I mean, after the sequel where we introduced friggin' Chucky and Ghostface and Ernest and Ash, and like we added the Necronomicon. Like, there's so many new things in that universe now. We're like, all bets are off. Like, everything goes. We can do whatever the hell we want in that franchise. So it was like, all right, let's do a straight up, improv sequel, which is kind of like how the show started. And it's apropos because the very first one we did was a sequel to a Friday the 13th movie. It was our Jason in the Snow episode where we brought back Tommy Jarvis and oh God, was it Tina? Was that the telekinetic chick?
Yeah, Tina. That was her.
Yeah, and then like so yeah, we brought them back and like so it's fun to kind of like for our 100th episode to return to something where Jason plays a pivotal role, and we get to do something completely different with the character. Like the first one we had him in the snow, and now in this one it's like okay, we get to have him be like he's the hero. And it's like, how many
Yeah,
times can you
exactly.
say that about Jason fucking
Yeah,
Voorhees?
he gets to be the big hero. Yeah, but he won't be next time. I mean, we've made him the main character of, or one of the main characters for two Slasher Camp episodes, so far, and he'll be back as definitely one of the leads in the next one. But it'll be
Hmm.
far more gleeful in the killing. He'll get to kill more people than just Pinhead.
Oh yeah, and unlike this one, it won't be PG-13. So
Nope.
there'll be a lot of bitches and a lot of murdering.
Hell yeah, yeah. An R-rated like summer slasher goreathon.
Hmm.
Yes, I can't wait
Can't
for it.
wait.
So, on that note, thanks everyone for joining us this episode. Please come back for next episode for 101 and beyond. You can find out more about this show at raisedbyrentals.com, at raisedbyrentals on the socials. We belong to the Rad Pantheon, a super team of podcasters, artists, musicians, all sorts of creative people supporting each other to help spread the word about rad stuff. If you like this show, you'll definitely like one or maybe even all of the other Rad Pantheon projects. Mike, you got some of those. What's going on?
Oh, well, we got the Boogeyman's Closet. So as always, that is our horror movie review podcast. I'm not sure what episode will be coming out when you guys hear this one. I am a little bit behind, so I have Sinister 2 and Ghoulies 2 waiting in the wings. And hopefully we'll be recording either Insidious or Intruder next. And then, of course, there's always Count Creepyhead Saturday Morning Monster Mash, where three grown man children talk about toys, Muppets, and pop culture.
Awesome. Yeah, always a good time. Definitely looking forward to the Intruder episode. Well, all of them really, but Intruder. You introduced me to that like just
Ah, such a fun movie.
recently, like within the last 2 years. I never saw it back in
Hmm.
the day, and yeah, I immediately fell in love with it. It's exactly the kind of movie that I like, and it was so fun to watch. Like, it was fun to discover a movie that is like so 80s, but like now in like the 2020s. It was awesome.
Yep. And it's one of those unsung slasher movies because it does the killer doesn't have like a cool gimmick. It's just a guy. It's like it's not anything like that stands out, but all of the kills are unique. The camera angles are wonderful. It's Sam Raimi and crew. Like, Sam Raimi's there, Ted Raimi's there, Bruce Campbell's there, and you could see a lot of like the techniques that Sam Raimi used on a lot of his movies as he was doing these early horror films with his friends, kind of learning how to make horror movies.
Yeah, absolutely. And, fun connection since I just watched Heathers today. Renee Estevez is in it. Emilio Estevez and Charlie Sheen's sister. She plays
Yeah,
she plays Betty Finn in Heathers. But anyway, hey, Mike, that reminds me. Have you ever done the Monster Squad on the Boogeyman's Closet? I couldn't remember.
we have. We have. Yeah, that one we had Hibbard join us for that one.
Okay, I'll have to find it in the back catalog because I was like, I swear I listened to it, but I couldn't find it today. So anyway, but for those of you listening to this, you should look it up. Go find the Monster Squad in the back catalog of the Boogeyman's Closet. Tune into that. Tune into Count Creepyhead, Saturday Morning Monster Mash, and all the other podcasts and that are associated with the Rad Pantheon. Once again, thanks for tuning in to the Raise My Rentals program. If you had fun with us, visit us on those socials. Drop us a line. Leave a comment. Leave a podcast rating. Let us know what we should improve next time. And with that, I'm Josh.
I'm Mike.
And we have to return some videotapes. Raised by Rentals is a member of the Rad Pantheon Network. Visit radpantheon.com to support rad stuff. The theme music is Forbidden Fruit by Velvet Bethany. You can purchase music and learn more at velvetbethany.com.
We have such sights to show you.
Wolfman's got nards.